Can you believe this? I can't believe this. This is Glen Hansard is coming over, take one. Oh my God. Hey everybody, it's your old pal Mike. I hope you're happy, healthy, and safe. Are you doing okay? Today, I am back, and I am back for maybe the best reason that's ever happened to me. I am working on a killer 1965 Fender Jaguar, a guitar that is truly stellar. It's got a full feeling neck, it's got a little bit of flame on the neck, it's refinished sloppily in black, but it's got a vibe, and it's an old refinish, so it's worn in all the right places. The guitar was a complete joy to set up. I gave it a full refret, I replaced a couple components, and I strung it up with 12-gauge strings for its owner, who happens to be, at the risk of sounding like a fanboy, this person is my favorite singer-songwriter ever, and their music has meant the world to me over the years. So, I mean, I'm still probably waking up, the coffee hasn't gotten all the way through my system, but I am absolutely blown away that something like this has happened to me. So let me tell you all about who this person is. This guitar belongs to one Glen Hansard, who is not only one of my favorite musicians ever, but also right at the top of my favorite Glens list. Hansard, Close, Howerton, Gary, Ross. It's a pretty good list, right? Now, some of you may remember Glen from a couple of movies, one being The Commitments, the other one being Once, which came out in, I believe, 2008. That's an incredible musical movie, and for a long time, that was my whole bag, man. I not only loved that movie, but I loved the music that went along with it. I'm sure you've come across Falling Slowly at some point in your life. It was everywhere. Some of you may also remember Glen from The Frames. The Frames have put out tons of records, and some of my favorites include Burn the Maps and Breadcrumb Trail, which is a live album that was recorded in Brno, Czech Republic, which is actually where I first discovered The Frames. Now, a couple things about Glen Hansard. If you know his music, then you've got to know his beat-up workhorse of a Takamine NP15 acoustic with a hole worn through to the bracing because of his aggressive and heavy-handed strumming. Now, I obsessed over that acoustic guitar for a long time because when you see it, and you see that gaping void in the top, you wonder how a guitar like that could possibly hold together and not close like a book. But no, it's one of the most incredible sounding guitars, one of the most electric, alive sounding acoustics that I have ever experienced in my life. But what really surprised me when Glen reached out, well, I mean, aside from the fact that he reached out, still mind-boggling, but the fact that he loves offset guitars really threw me for a loop. I had no idea. When it comes to electrics, I associate Glen with his battered 70s Telecaster Thinline, but honestly, it makes a lot of sense when you think about it. When you think of his percussive, heavy-handed strumming, Jaguar seems like a perfect fit. Jazzmaster seems like a perfect fit because I feel like they're very percussive guitars. In their stock configuration, a lot of folks lament that the stock Jazzmaster bridge, the Jaguar bridge, doesn't have a lot of sustain, and I'm here to tell you that not every guitar needs to have a lot of sustain. But what you get out of those guitars is immediacy. You get the note, and then it dies off rather quickly. And so it makes total sense to me when I think about it that way, when I think about the percussiveness of a Jaguar or a Jazzmaster. And then when you add a mastery bridge onto it, you do get more sustain, but it doesn't completely take away that strident feel that a Jaguar or Jazzmaster has. But perhaps even more exciting was the fact that he wanted to send me a guitar, and that happens to be this one. This is that 1965 Fender Jaguar that I was telling you about. This is something that he just bought while he's on tour with Eddie Vedder and the Earthlings. Very, very exciting record. Incredible shows from what I can see from footage on YouTube. And this thing is great. This is a fantastic Jaguar. It's so much fun to play. The neck is skinny nut territory, but also kind of firm and full. Like this is a really stiff neck. I'm enjoying playing this. But it required a lot of work. He bought this from a shop in Canada. Good people, had a great experience. And when it showed up, I knew that it was gonna need some work, which included a full refret with StewMac 148 frets. So yeah, this is an incredible Jaguar, and I couldn't be more proud of the work I've done on it. And I'm even prouder that Glen is going to be able to use this on the rest of the dates with Eddie Vedder, because I think this is going to fit right in with his rig. Let's talk about some of the things that I had to do to get this guitar into fighting shape. Now, like I said, job one was a refret. When this guitar came to me, these frets were totally hammered. I don't mean hammered in at the Fender factory, I mean they were played out, especially that last fret, which had been worn down to a nub. It was actually really difficult to pull that thing out of the fretboard because there was so little material to grip it with. The refret went actually maybe the smoothest I've ever experienced. This is one of the best, easiest refrets I have ever done. The frets came right out of their appropriately sized slots, like they were in their channels. And then after leveling the board, I mean, it really didn't take any effort to get this trued up. Now, Glen and I had a nice long conversation about fret size, and he didn't really seem to have much of a preference, but didn't want the frets so big that they would get in his way when he's sliding up the fretboard, so we went with StewMac 148. But these frets, I'm incredibly happy with the way this guitar plays. Like this is really good. Coming from me, the person who did it, this is really good. What else? Fret ends are completely undetectable. I went maybe a little overboard with making sure that they disappeared into the fretboard. You can only just detect that you're moving over a fret, and that's the way I think it should be. I also cut a beautiful new bone nut for this thing, which polished up beautifully. Let's see, what else did I do? Oh, this guitar had a problem that I have never encountered on a guitar before. When I was done with the refret, done with the nut, I found the perfect set of strings. I went to put this guitar all the way back together, and it didn't work. Which was a little bit of a surprise because I was so amped up to get this fretwork done that I didn't really test it before I started. So word to the wise out there, always test things so that you're not surprised later. But when I put this guitar back together, it hummed incredibly. And I'm not talking 60 cycle, I'm talking ground error hum. The sound was just like when you hold your thumb on a 1/4-inch plug and you get that no signal was really coming out, and that was concerning. So the first thing I do when I encounter that, and especially on a guitar that I know is going to be toured heavily, is I reflowed every single solder joint under this guard. Because I want to make sure that this guitar will hold up to the rest of the dates of his tour. The last thing that I would want is to watch the show on YouTube and hear that sound and my client not being able to use the guitar that they spent money on. So yes, I reflow all solder joints. I do that to my guitars too. So I did that, but it didn't help. And wouldn't you know it, when I pulled out my multimeter to test continuity between all of the metal plates on this body, not a single one was connected. Now that was surprising because I know for a fact that there are ground wires running between all of these and the plates underneath, the shielding plates, but none of these were connected. And so I pulled the plates and tested each component to see if it was, making a ground connection. And like the switch to the rollers, there was a ground connection. Each of the 3 switches on the lead circuit were connected. The pots were connected, but none of these islands were connected to one another. And then it dawned on me. The problem wasn't the wiring. The problem was some work that had been performed previously. I never understand when people do this, but I guess I can understand the motivation. Someone at some point in this guitar's life decided to shield the guitar using foil tape, which is a fine thing to do. However, they put that foil tape on the back of these plates, which you don't need to do. If you have a Jaguar and you want to shield it, skip that step. The metal plates are as good as you're going to get for shielding. And then at some point, that foil was removed, leaving behind a thick, gooey layer of adhesive that was never cleaned off. And that adhesive over the years, and it has been years, has hardened into a thick layer of, I don't know, you can scratch it with your fingers. It sounds like a chalkboard. Disgusting. And so I tested for continuity from the plate to that adhesive, and nothing. So what did I do? Well, Goo Gone would normally be what I use to remove adhesive, but this stuff was old and crusty and hard, and Goo Gone just would not work. So I had to resort to 220 grit sandpaper, and I just kind of buffed that stuff off until it was gone, tested for continuity, and bam, the plates were back. First time I have ever seen that on a guitar, and something I will remember for a long time, and I will be looking out for it. Let's see, what else do we have to talk about in this guitar? We've got a mastery bridge on here because Glenn, as I said, heavy-handed strummer, so that's gonna work out great for him. Oh, and we've got a wound G on here. I know a lot of people say that you can't intonate a wound G correctly with a mastery, and in my experience, that hasn't been true at all. Remember that intonation is a function of action or overall string height and not simply saddle position. There's a lot more to it. So remember that when you're working on a guitar with a wound G and a mastery, you can play with height a little bit. You don't have to ruin the radius either. It just takes a little extra care and you'll be fine. So yeah, like I said, this is a hell of a guitar. This is an incredible Jaguar. I am loving the sound of this thing, the feel of it. It just resonates. And these 12s do something on a Jaguar that you just don't get with a lighter string gauge. There is that like wiry depth, that like kind of gruff attitude that jumps out of a short scale instrument with heavy strings, and there's just nothing like it on this earth. So yeah, I'm very excited to play this a little bit. I'm very excited to hear him play it. Yeah, I'm just beaming. I'm very excited. Oh, another fun fact is that Glen Hansard is the only person that I have ever done guitar work for who specifically asked for fret buzz. It's a quirk of his playing, it's what he expects, but he specifically wanted a little bit of fret buzz built into this setup because that's just what feels like home. And again, going back to his percussive nature, it kind of makes sense. It's alive, it's electric, it gives the tone character. So yeah, literally the first person who's ever asked me for it, and that made me so happy because believe it or not, I kind of like a little fret buzz too. That's just me, that's just what I like. So yeah, this guitar came out great. It is a far cry from what it was when it came in. It was dirty and frets were worn out and it wasn't really playable. but oh my God, now it is. So let's have a listen to it and we'll wrap this up. Thank you so much for watching this video and coming along with me in this cool little surprise journey that came out of nowhere. I appreciate you coming back to the channel again and again, for liking, for sharing, for commenting, for subscribing, for doing all that good stuff that makes the algorithm happy. Special shout out to my patrons who were wonderful and supportive and so excited for me when this job came up. I love you all to death. If you are interested in finding out more about how you too can support the channel, please click the link in the description down below. So in the meantime, I hope you're taking care of yourselves and each other, and I'll see you in the next video.